Hey there, and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be doing the color project. Project 2 color LED. See if I can get this thing to focus. There we go. So we can change the colors of this LED based on where we put these potentiometers. And I'll explain what a potentiometer is. We have 3 of them, red, green, and blue, that control that diode through our current control resistors that we saw back here. So we can crank up the red, we can crank up the green, and we can crank up the blue. And we can also mix them. I'll keep it a little dim so it doesn't blow out on the camera here. There we go, a little bit of a purple. And what do we get with red and green? I don't know what we get. Kind of an orangish color. It looks a lot better in person than it does on the camera. So that's what we're going to be doing today, using potentiometers to control a color resistor. We got our switch, potentiometers, resistor, and color LED. And this LED is a little bit different from the others. Hopefully your board looks something like this and that you're ready to get on with this project. So the LED at the top looks like this, if you're to draw it out on a schematic. We've got our negative and our positive because it's an LED. That means it's a diode of some sort, a light emitting diode. So we've got our negative and our positive. And we know that because of the whiskers and because cats are bad, if you remember that from the last one. So the negative side of our battery would have to go there, and the positive side would have to go there. Like that. And we'll just make this 5-volt battery because that's just easy to think of. Granted, ours are close enough to that. So 5 volts, just easy to think of it that way. But if we were to do that, as we learned on the last one, it'll take out the LEDs and, well, they'll be really bright for a moment and then they won't. So we need to add our current control resistors into those. So if we did that, all of those LEDs would be on full bright and we would end up having a white light. And we can demonstrate that with this one. Flip it over to color and we crank these so that we got maximum going through. And you can see that LED is all 3 colors or white. So now that we have at least that much that we know we can turn it on, we need to find a way to control it. So what we can do is we just add our potentiometers in there. So there's our 3 control resistors, and here's our 3 potentiometers doing this. I know this looks like a crazy mess, but it'll make sense in a minute. If you think about a potentiometer, or if you don't think about one, it's just a great big resistor like this, usually 10,000 ohms, 10K ohms. And if you go meter to meter with, well, if you're to hook it up to a power supply and you read across this, you would be the same thing as if you're reading here to here. And so you're going to read the entire voltage across that resistor, 5 volts in this case. But a potentiometer has 3 legs to it, which is this little guy. And so if you put your meter from here to here, you read only this part. And that'll be, in this case, it looks about halfway. I'm going to call it halfway. You're going to have about 2.5 volts. If we move it down to here, we're going to have about 1 volt when we measure there. If we go all the way there, we're going to have 0 volts. And likewise, if we go all the way up here, we're going to have the full thing. It's going through the whole resistor, so we're going to have 5 volts if we measure there. So depending on where we put this, we can change the voltage that is felt right here. And if we hook that up to our little resistor and then to our LED, we can control the whole thing. So we'll just look at one. We'll keep it a little less confusing. There we go. So we have our negative side is what we're using here. So we got the negative side of the battery right here. Goes in and, ooh, sorry for bumping the stand. Goes to the potentiometer, and we can adjust that wiper so that if it's all the way down here, there's 0 volts, and all the way up here is 5 volts. That goes into our current control resistor and goes in and turns on our red LED From there, it goes all the way back around, comes down into the positive side of the battery. Current flow is negative to positive. We'll get into that later. It's not that big of a deal. And so we just duplicate that over. Control P or Control C, Control V, and boom, there it is. This is not the right way to control a diode or a LED. The right way to do it is with pulse width modulation. And so what we have here is what should be done is you send a signal that turns on and off very quickly. And if it's about halfway across, just like this, that side's supposed to be equal to that side. My drawing skills are amazing. That'll be about half bright. If you get it down to about like this, that's going to turn it off. And if you want it full bright, it's going to look like that. You can see that it's on more often than it's off. Our eyes can't see the flicker, but it ends up dimming it and brightening it. That's the best way to do it. That's how you're supposed to control an LED. But sometimes engineering is about doing whatever the heck you want to make it work. And if it works, it's good enough. So this one, instead of controlling the pulse width, what we're doing is actually adjusting the voltage. Now, I'm going to get a little mathy here. If this is brightness and this is our voltage, this is what the graph of the LED would look like. It'll right down here, we'll have no brightness till about 1.5 volts on these, sometimes more, sometimes less. There's a lot of factors. So about 1.5. And all of a sudden it'll get bright until it's all the way bright, right around like 2 volts-ish. And there it'll stay at that brightness all the way up until it's not, at which point it'll blow out and then it'll be dark the rest of the time forever and ever. Which is why we have those guys again. All right, enough blathering. Let's just get on and make something cool. What we're going to need on this project, obviously, our board and our switch. You might have a different switch. You might have a little silver switch that's a little bit smaller and a little bit more robust than this thing. These, they've not passed the test for me. Obviously, we're going to need our color LED that goes up into there. Our 3 potentiometers. If you remember, actually, I'll pull out the picture. There we go. We can take the battery off. Our potentiometer has 3 points to it. 1, 2, and 3. And those correspond to these 3 legs. Typically 1, 2, and 3, with 2 being what's called the wiper. These 2 pieces are just there to hold it into the board. They're not used electrically. They kind of ground the case if it's grounded, but that's not important on something like this. We'll get into that stuff much later. Of course, we have our 220 ohm resistors. I will have a video coming out soon on resistor color codes. And that's everything we need on this one. So let's go ahead and get started on this. We'll just start at the bottom. The legs on yours should be offset. If they're not, there'll be something there about it. And it should just drop right into the board. I did not turn on my soldering iron ahead of time, so now I get to ramble on while it warms up. This is the fun part in soldering, is sometimes, especially when the board's made right, the components won't stay. And we talked about folding them over when we were doing the resistor and the LED over here. In this case, we can just set this flat for right now. It's a little difficult to fold those legs over. There we go. Let's get that just a bit warmer. Alrighty, and we'll get our solder. And if you remember from the first soldering lesson, we'll add our little bit of a heat bridge. And we'll go on here, and I'm just going to tack this down kind of lightly. Come off. There we go. I'm going to flip it back over and make sure that the switch is still how I want it to be. It's still flat against the board. Okay, and now that little piece is going to hold it in, and I can focus on soldering the other pieces in. There we go. Oh, I did not add my bridge. No wonder I was having problems. We'll add just a little bit there. There we go. Well, that's perfect. I'll go to that one. Add the solder in. Lift it up. Add the solder in. Lift it up. And then we'll come back and reheat this one. Add the solder and lift it up. Let's see if this will focus. There we go. They're a little light, but not too bad. It looks like, on the camera, it looks like, where's my little pointer? There we go. It looks like this one's got a hole, but that's actually the flux that's on there. You can see the flux really good on this one. All the goopy, brownish, yellowy stuff. That's the stuff that helps solder to flow. So, let's clean that up a little bit. Get out our acid brush and some rubbing alcohol. Oops, I splashed a little bit. Just let the bristles do the work. And put in a happy tree right here, maybe a little bush over here. And how about a nice big pool of alcohol right over there? Oh, that's perfect. We'll wipe all that up. Let's see if that'll focus. There we go. No more flux. I'm serious, those are shadows there on the bottom side of these. They are completely full. They're a little low, but not bad. I do have a little concave shape to it. So those are good to go. Now we'll move on to the next part here. And these can get to be a bit of a tricky problem. Let's see if I can figure out the zoom. Hey, I figured out the zoom. Alrighty, so we're gonna go in. There we go, right there and right there. You line up your 3 pins and get those lined up, and this should just snap right into place once everything's aligned. Okay, might be a little difficult. There we go, snaps right in. And the good thing, and this is why I chose these, is because you can turn it over and it's not falling out. I'm just gonna go ahead and install all 3 right now. If you're having some troubles, go ahead and pause. Or if I start having troubles, you may want to fast forward. It does fit, and it's going to sound like it's grinding a little bit. There we go. How's that for a better view? There we go. Oh, goodness gracious. I did twist that a little bit. There we go. We'll twist it back. Oh, I twisted the heck out of that thing. Well, there you go. Now you get to see what happens when things go poorly. Little needle nose like these are very handy to have. There we go. That should be okay now. Let's try this again. All right, it's a little bit wide. We're gonna pull that in a little bit. Yeah, thrilling content on YouTube. Wow. I'm gonna get the boring award this year. Okay, right there, right there. Get these guys lined up. Or not. All right, I'm going out of the camera so I can see what I'm doing. There we go. So there we go. Got them lined in, and then let's see if I can duplicate this. So I got these guys aligned on their holes, and then just kind of slide it back in and push it down into place. It's going to sound like it's grinding or slicing up the board, which it kind of is a little bit, but that's okay. We want it to hold steady. And we can flip it over, and on yours, make sure you got all 3 there, and that those holder prongs kind of look like that. And we'll put the last one in here. Line up those 3, and there we go. Rock it back. Boom. There, that's how it's supposed to go. Snaps right into place. So hopefully you didn't have as many problems as I did. That one works, and that one works. All right, let's get to the soldering on these guys. You know what, I'll leave it zoomed in for this. are learning. Okay, so we're going to add a little bit of a heat bridge. And add the solder. Now I've got a camera phone in my way so I don't get the smoke directly in my face. You might want to breathe out to blow the smoke away, or they do make fume extractors. I will add a link to one in the description there, probably, if I remember to. If that's something that you want, I can look those up for you guys. I usually have a fan going, but while filming, that's not a pleasant sound. In fact, I have an air conditioner in my shop that I have to turn off while filming. That's why these videos are going to be not very long. There we go. We'll go on to the next one here. I have zero depth perception through this phone. My high-tech camera. All right, we'll go to that one. There we go. All right, let's come get this closest one. It's probably the blue, is it? Yeah, probably the blue potentiometer or pot. I'll probably end up calling them pot more often than not. And there we go. Now it's flowing and it's done. And now we're flowing. Add just a bit more. There we go. And there we go. Now you can, and I do recommend soldering in the holders, but it's not a requirement on these. They are mechanically secure, but you can solder them in to just give it that extra little oomph, and you just feed in a whole bunch of solder while you heat it up. And you may have to move your iron all the way around to get everywhere, and it's not going to look good like the component parts should. This is just a little bit of an extra mechanical advantage, and it's not much really. Solder is lead and tin, and both of those metals are known for being very, very malleable, very changeable, and they don't have a whole lot of structural strength to them. So, which is a note about electronics in general. Never treat the solder like it's glue, like it's going to hold a component in place. I know I just did that, but for any length of time, a temporary tack to hold something good enough. And most of the components will be held in by the solder, but it's not meant to be a glue or a weld. It's mostly just to connect it electrically. All right, we'll get this last one going here. And I'm just zipping through these. I'm not checking them to see if they're done good, because it's not really that important. If you want to show off your card, you know, add solder to tell it looks good. That way it's cool to show somebody. There we go. All right, so those are all in. I did take my time on this one, on those, and you can see that so much as the legs are curled or twisted. Here, let's go with this one over here. There we go. Since the legs aren't straight, the solder follows it up on the outside and comes in a little bit more on the sides, and it's mostly a big blob. The other ones, does it show? It is so hard to film that. I've really got to figure out a better way. The three, let me get to the one that I just did. The three legs should all have solder that looks like that on it. A nice concave fillet. There we go, get some contrast. So that it curves up into the component. So those are all in, and you can see here there's no solder right there. I'm really not concerned. Right there, that's, yeah, no solder right there. And it's not great there, which is fine. On this one, I don't really care. If you want to show it off, fill it up with solder so that it looks cool. That's the big thing. And we'll paint some more happy trees. We're going to zoom out for this part. There we go. A happy little shrub. Get a limp for your egg. And we still got some flux floating around here, so. Okay. That is not just good, it is good enough. All right, I don't want to take up all your time while I'm doing all the cleaning. On yours, you'll want to make sure it's clean. So if you need to pause, now's a good time to pause. Do 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 do. Okay, and we're gonna do these resistors next. And that is the brown resistors with the red-brown color coding on them. Just pull these guys out. 1, 2, 3. And in the last video, I showed how to use these. But before that, I think I may have shown, if not, I can't remember what I've done on these videos because I've done 97 takes of everything. I am not good at making videos. These are some of my favorite tools, but they are pricey. It's about $50. And what you do is you stick it into the component holes and tighten it down. Just regular calipers, really, essentially. And then you can put your component in there and you get it centered. And then you just bend the legs over. I'm a little bit crooked right here, but. And that should just drop right into place very easily. And there we go. A little bent. There we go. It makes it so much easier than using these. Where, here we go, we'll get that mostly straight. So we lay it in there. And we come in. I'm blocking everything. There we go, we'll come in like this. There we go. And then come in from the other side and bend it there. You can see that that's probably what you're doing. If you're willing to spend 50 bucks on that tool right at the beginning of starting, I don't know. And it doesn't do a horrible job, but it gets it done. And I'm bending these out to hold the component in place. I'm just going to put all 3 of them in first. So all of that effort compared to, especially if you have to do multiple components of the same thing, this comes in super handy. You bend it across there and slide it on in. And I didn't do such a great job. There we go. Let me get that one pushed down. There we go. So I highly recommend these if you want to do a lot of stuff, but again, they're $50, $55, I think. I don't know. I'll find a link for these too, maybe, if I remember to. Actually, you know what? What do I need to remember to put a link to? Let's see. I need to do, all right, calipers. And I can't remember. I will rewatch the video after uploading and see if I can remember then. Oh, the exhaust fan or the extractor fan. There we go. All right, so I got all the legs out of the way. And compared to what we've done so far, this is super easy, barely an inconvenience. We're just going to go straight in. Let's see if I can do this zoom thing. Hey, look at that. So we're going to start with this guy. And we'll jump over to here. And we'll jump over to there. Tilt this around. Now your board's not going to lay flat anymore while you're doing this, and that, believe it or not, is, whoops, I did that wrong. There we go. Part of the lesson board. You're going to, quite often when you're soldering, you're going to be doing stuff that has other components on it, and things aren't going to go right. They do make board holders. I'm working on coming up with 3D printed ones. If I get that, I'll let you all know. And now we'll just cut the legs out on this so they don't short to anything. Now, to do this properly, you're supposed to cut the legs ahead of time and then do the soldering. Reason being is, where we have it right now, where I just cut, that's exposed copper right there on all 6 of these, and the solder actually covers up that exposed copper and keeps it from getting corroded. A shortcut you can do, if you want to do it that way, or this way rather, is you just come in and heat it up, and the solder will flow over that copper. I know it doesn't look like it on film. I really, really wish it would. I wish I knew more about making videos on film again. I'm old. All right, so we've got our flux on there. We'll get that cleaned off. And I'll do this as quick as I can. If it's not good enough, then it's not good enough. I'll clean it up later before videoing the next video. Videoing the next video. I learned how to talk. Okay, that's good enough for right now. All right, we have one component left, and that is our color LED. Now, much like the red LEDs, this one has a flat spot on it. There we go. You can see on this guy a little flat spot there, and hopefully this will show up on the camera. Let's see if I can get it to focus on it. The flat spot is on this side. So your board should have a little thing that says flat spot here, because this is not very well marked on mine. So you take, it's just like the LED, regular LED, but you got 4 leads. And what you're gonna wanna do is you start with the long one and then work your way to the next longest one, wiggling things in, and you're able to adjust while it holds it. Get that last one in, and then the front one in, and you'll see the flat spot lines right up on the markings. You're gonna wanna hold it in place, flip the board, and we'll pull out the last 2 legs a little ways so that it holds it in while we get everything soldered. In fact, we're gonna just set it down on there. Now, just like we did on the switch, we're gonna solder one leg. Now this one, the legs are very, very close together, the solder pads. So you gotta be very careful about how much solder you add. It's better to go light on this one. I'm gonna go into this guy. So I'll get my heat bridge here. There we go. And we'll add just a little bit of solder there. Come on, there we go. Melt in. Lift, and now it's enough to hold it in place. Let me get in here and really see what I'm doing. I'm going to go around the camera. Hopefully I get everything in focus. Okay, these are all very lightly soldered in. It's not great, but we'll go in and we'll cut the legs off of here. There we go. Okay, now if you're cutting multiple legs like that, or even one leg, it's a good idea to grab the leg while you're cutting so that it doesn't go flying across the room and end up in your face. This is one that just happened to pop up. I did not plan this. You see how there's that little coil of solder there? You don't want that. And when you're using solder, you don't want to stretch it and pull it apart because that screws up the flux in the middle of it. If you need just a piece of solder, it's best to just cut it off from whatever it is. And that way the integrity of the solder and the tube of flux are still there. All right, little heat bridge, there we go. We're just gonna reflow, and this one needs to add, and this one needs to add, and this one needs to add. There we go. All right, let me clean as fast as I can here. Okay, and titanium white wipes that we bind to the fuzzies. There we go. Isn't that what the Charmin commercial's all about? Get that out of the way, get the fuzzy out of the way. There we go. And what you want to make sure is that there's no solder going in between the pads. Let's see if I can get this a little bit closer. Hey, look at that. Wow, that's pretty actually. So there's no solder in between those pads. They're really close together, but that's how the component was designed. So now that that's in, and if you have no solder on the pads, or no solder between the pads, but solder on the pads, it's time to see if this thing will work. Get out the other battery pack here. So we'll go red and black. Red in there. The reason I haven't soldered these in is flipping it over and over is just not going to be a good idea. All right, so we've got it on the color mode. So if we turn that up, oh, hey, yeah, never mind. Maybe if I have all the batteries in there, are smart. There we go. Now we've got all the power we need. And we turn that up, and we got blue. And you can see that chart that I was talking about earlier, where there's nothing, and then it gets up to the brightness very quickly. As you crank up the pot, nothing, and then boom, and then full bright right away. Well, not full bright, but you get the idea. And it's going to be the same with this one. Nothing, and then it's there. And purple, not purple, blue-green. There we go. And then we'll go red. Oh, my hand's in the way. There we go. We'll go red on this guy, and then we'll add some blue. And now we got purple, but it doesn't show up on camera. So you can see it on all three of them, that there's a long dead spot there, and that's because we're cheating the system. We're not doing it the proper way, but we're doing it a far cheaper way. To do it any other way would require another chip like this and some other stuff too. So this is, sometimes you just go with what works, and if it works, then sometimes that's good enough. So there we go. Nice blue and red light. Wee, 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 wee. Okay, I'll stop playing with that. Well, I hope you have a wonderful day. I hope your project went well, and enjoy. See you on the next video for the Flasher Project 3.